Les Brown once said, "The graveyard is the richest place on earth, because it is here where you will find all hopes and dreams that were never fulfilled, the books that were never written, the songs that were never sung, the inventions that were never shared, the cures that were never discovered, all because someone was too afraid to take that first step, keep with the problem, or determined to carry out their dream."
So this quote is one of my favorite quotes, and I believe it ties in really well with what we were discussing today about how not getting out of your comfort zone can really ruin your life. Now just imagine that you pass away and you get a chance to meet your true potential. Would you be upset? Would you be frustrated that you didn't live up to that true potential? But the truth of the matter is we are essentially wired to essentially just procreate. At a young age, right, you are essentially learning all that you can to basically survive. Yes, you can change some different things when you get older and learn new things, but ultimately at a young age, you're more susceptible to learning things, right? You're like a sponge, and then you essentially grow older to hopefully procreate, and then your job is essentially a human being is done, right? That's it. Call it done. You have done your duty, right? That's essentially what we are designed for. But to really meet your potential, you have to live outside of your comfort zone. And when I say the comfort zone, I'm talking about, that safe place, those routine things you do every single day, day in, day out, without fail, without trying anything new, without expanding or trying to get a new perspective on things. You just live in this world, and you realize that by doing this, you live in this really contracted comfort zone. And the longer you stay in here, the less you actually want to get out of this comfort zone. And so everything becomes extremely fearful to be able to do anything. I myself, right, I started YouTube, I started social media, I started doing videos, and that was one of the hardest things. That was so far out there for my comfort zone, because that's not the kind of person I was. I wasn't the kind of person that would typically talk, and then to do it on social media of all things, yeah, it took a lot of takes, and I finally was like, okay, do it. And when I was going to actually upload the video, it took a while. It took a couple minutes, right? I was fearful because that was way out of my comfort zone. I didn't know what my friends, my family were going to say about what I was doing. And yes, even though it was fearful after I did it, I slowly stepped out of that comfort zone. And as fearful as it was, the second video wasn't nowhere nearly as bad. And then the more videos I started doing, because originally I started on Instagram, and then I went over to YouTube and started doing longer videos. And I realized that, man, this is actually becoming really easy, and my comfort zone's really expanding. And now I can get on here and talk a lot more freely as opposed to what I used to be able to do. Because I was so rigid, even though I still may be very rigid now, I'm so far ahead of where I was. And I've realized that not only was that getting out of my comfort zone just in that particular situation, but that's bled over into so many other different things. And I've realized I can hold conversations a lot better. And even though, that there could be a lot of other different things in play there, ultimately it was me getting out of my comfort zone and realizing that, hey, I'm okay out here. But the thing is, it's one of those progressive things. If you are not consistently doing it, again, you contract that comfort zone, and you don't ever want to leave out of that comfort zone, and then you're right back to where you started. An example of this would be if you started going to the gym. Initially you feel a little uncomfortable. It's not where you're comfortable, right? And then once you go there frequently, you start becoming comfortable, you start getting to know the equipment, you start, you knowing your routine, everything is good. And then when you realize you take a break, and you go back, you're right back where you started almost. Yeah, you kind of have the routine, but again, you still have to build it. And so going out of your comfort zone is pushing the limits of where you're at, to essentially know where you're at. And a lot of times it can be really scary for a lot of people to do any kind of thing outside of their comfort zone. And so you might actually have to take it in small doses. Do something a little bit different that you don't typically do. And this can be anything for even physical activity. Maybe you are someone that is trying to get healthier and you find that your typical routine is to come home after work and relax and just watch TV because that's all you want to do is just to not think. But get out of your comfort zone and just start walking a little bit. You realize that, yeah, you're uncomfortable doing this because it's not something you typically do. But you realize the more you push yourself, the more you push against that comfort zone, that friction, the easier it gets, and then it becomes routine. I'm always talking about routine, and yes, you should always have a good routine. You should always have some kind of positive routines in your life that help you progress in life, because that's ultimately what we're built for, is to have that purpose. And to find that purpose, you essentially needed to be challenging yourself and getting new perspectives. And you realize that when you do this, you feel like you have value that you can bring to the world because you have different perspectives. And in doing so, you have to step out of that comfort zone and expand your comfort zone and continuously do this. And even in myself, right? Like I do this in all my physical activity. I always try new things. And although it seems extremely hard, there's a lot of friction there, I eventually get it. And then I can do, maybe I was able only to do like 10 burpees, and now I can do like 20, 30 burpees. And that is a feat in itself, because you start building confidence in yourself that, yeah, I know there's friction there. I know there will be friction. And again, depending on how far of a reach you're trying to get out there in your comfort zone, there is going to be more friction, but small doses until you're used to expanding that comfort zone. Then eventually you will take those larger leaps into those bigger things that you've wanted to do, and you realize that soon enough you start closing that gap to your true potential because you're living outside that comfort zone. And again, it's a progressive thing. You got to constantly be maintaining that zone and realizing where you're at, auditing yourself to see where you're at. Now, whether you have to make a log of this, you have to journal this and see where you're at, say, hey, you know what, today I'm going to try this. It's out of my comfort zone, not something I typically do. Do I like it? Yes or no? Then, progress with it. Now, again, doing these videos wasn't something I enjoyed doing, but it was essentially a bridge to where I wanted to get. So yes, you're going to still be doing things that you may not like, but you have to ultimately look at the ultimate goal, right? It's the journey to get there is pushing against the comfort zone to get there. And then you realize that along the way, it allows you to feel more confident in yourself, to realize that you can do it. You're willing to push that comfort zone further out. And sometimes you challenge yourself to do that, and I've done that. Again, a lot of physical stuff, I do really challenge myself in doing that, experimenting with what I do. And even any kind of business venture, right? Like writing a book, it's putting yourself out there. That's something that is way far-fetched outside of your comfort zone. But maybe it's something you've always wanted to do. You have to get over that fear, because you realize that right up until that point, you are extremely fearful and you're sweating bullets and you feel like you're going to have a panic attack, but as soon as it's done, it's done. And all those thoughts in your mind that were telling you, man, this is going to happen, that's going to laugh, he's going to laugh, she's going to laugh, all these things that are going through your head, they don't happen. And so the next video isn't as bad. You're like, oh, maybe just nobody watched it, so I'm okay. So I'm gonna put a second one out there. You realize, this ain't bad. No bad feedback, right? Not to say that there won't be, especially if you're on social media, but the fact is you become more comfortable with it. It's all just growing and going against that friction, and you get to a point to where going against that friction of that comfort zone is actually comforting to you. And that's where you want to be. That's where you realize you're obtaining and closing that gap. And then eventually, one day you will pass and you will meet your future self, and it'll be just a reflection of who you are. So I hope this helps you guys. And remember, if you do enjoy this video, to hit this like button on the way out. Till next time, I will see you guys later.